Jello. All right, this video is around, it's interesting because it's attached to a memory. In stages, you learn from your friends and stuff. Whenever the relationship is no longer valid between you and your friend. So in stages of your life, you learn from your friends. Or maybe you learn from your friends in stages. I have no idea. But it's written here, in stages, you learn from your friends and stuff. Whenever the relationship is no longer valid, as in that friendship thingy, ship, right? The back and forth is no longer valid. We should drop what we learned from the other side immediately. Joking. But it does said here we should drop what we learned from the other side and restructure our learnings from the relationship itself. It makes sense because if you have a friend that no longer is a friend, then ultimately your perception of them has shifted, right? The relationship is no longer the same. So the idea should be more, whatever I thought was true back then is no longer true now. Yeah, that is one thing, right? Grapes, by the way. So what I'm saying here is, when you're in something, you kind of only see what you want to see. Right? The whole, in hindsight, there's a lot of times we kind of we're in a space and then eventually in hindsight we're like, oh, where are we or whatever. All relationships in hindsight had red flags that you can see. Right or no? That's the conversation. I feel like that's the whole thing. It's just there was a relationship between me and somebody, a friendship, a partnership, a whatever. What do they call it? Partner, I don't know, girlfriendship, marriageship, whatever that is. So any form of ship that existed between you and another person, when you're in the relationship, you kind of have a one-sided view on the other side. Because you're vibing, you're in it. The whole structure of your information surrounds the existence of that ship in between, the relationship in between. And here it's like, you learn from your friends. And I said, and stuff. Whenever the relationship is no longer valid, and that's the thing that I kind of I'm not saying he's no longer your friend, but it's kind of not a friendship. I have people that I grew up with, and when I see them, I feel like they're my brothers and all that shit. But they're not really my friends. They're not there for me when I need them. They're not a part of my day-to-day activities. They're not a part of my life. They're just people that at one point something existed between me and them. We all have these stories. And ultimately, a lot happens when you're with somebody, when you're hanging out with somebody. That kind of strength in the bond has a world designed a certain kind of way, right? I remember when I had friends I called every day. It's my world looked a certain kind of way with them in it, and then when I stopped calling them, the world didn't look the same. Right? It's mourning somebody. It's literally it's I have to recreate a world with them not in it. When I left, I had to do when you travel, that's the whole kind of the whole hero's journey. is you're leaving a place where everything kind of like is, you know where the place of everything is. Someplace completely new where you have to redesign it. You're in shock the first 2-3 weeks until you kind of like figure some stuff out. So in that world, when that relationship is no longer valid, you have to mourn that person from your world. You have to kind of like, redesign this world without you in it. And what I said is, we should drop what we learned from this guy, these people, these friends, this girl, this relationship, whatever, this partnership, whether it's professional or social or whatever. We should drop what we learned from these people. And the reason for that is because whatever we learned from them, whatever we remember from them, is biased and skewed to something that no longer exists. And it's not that, and the issue is not the part between us and them. The issue is the part between us and the world, that includes their reasoning, their logic, whatever we're no longer connecting with. Right? The ship is no longer valid. The relationship is no longer valid. Which means our connection to each other is no longer the same. And that's probably because my world and your world are no longer in synchrony or in harmony, or my identity and your identity in harmony. My world and your world are not really like in sync. We don't see eye to eye. We don't have the same whatever, right? Like, that is it. That is basically like, the shift that happened. And with that, everything that you learned is no longer applicable within your world. So you owe it to them and to you for you to mourn their existence in your world, to mourn that relationship. Mourn literally, like when somebody dies, you take like 40 days to mourn their existence. And the idea is for you to mourn their existence in your life in order for you to kind of like reflect on that relationship from the new perspective, without the bias that was connected to it from the beginning. Right? And it says it here. It's like everything we learned from the other side, we should drop what we learned from the other side, from them. And then restructure our learnings from the relationship itself. Because when you're in a relationship, you can't see the relationship. What you can see is the other person, because that's where the ship goes back and forth. When you're not in a relationship, you get to see the routes between you guys. You get to see how you used to interact. You used to see how things connected. And normally these things start showing up when there's friction, on when there's not really that much stuff happening between you guys. Right? I had a friend of mine that we always used to hang out just so we can kind of like sit and shoot the hay. And at one point I started doing stuff, and when I started doing stuff, we stopped hanging out. But he kept shooting the hay and sitting on the side of the road and meeting the other friends that we used to hang out with. Or it got to a point where all I had, I guess, was just small. All I had was the memory of how we used to sit together. If you tell me remember him, I remember basically what we used to do together. I don't remember him. If I see him, I'll feel probably comfortable around him. But I do not necessarily remember him, because when he's no longer there, all that's left is what we did together, and that's basically where the relationship is, right? That is the relationship. I feel it's interesting. I remember he was fun. I remember he laughed a lot. I remember we laughed a lot. We were probably very stupid back in the day. 3 years ago, I saw him, and I saw him with his fiance, and he was like, "Todd is my best friend." I was like, best friend? Yeah. It's super vibey, by the way. Right, he seems like he's still exactly the same, but I have no idea what that means. Right? Like, I don't know how he interacts with the world now, because I don't really hang out with him. But with me, it kind of goes back to how we used to interact back then. Right? And maybe that's something that people kind of like, cling to. Because a part of who they are right now is a part of who they were back then. And the whole journey of discovering the other person or building a new relationship probably ruins the memories that they have or reestablishes whatever I'm talking about right now, right? Because like ultimately you have to mourn the person in order to want, when you see them next, you're looking at them with a fresh set of eyes, with a new perspective based on where you are right now, completely like looking at the world from your side. And so like anything beyond that is an interaction that you deliver between you and them, right? Like you kind of like build around between you and them. Yeah. It does feel like everything needs your attention, and it feels like everything requires your presence. And maybe I'm being very scientific about these, but kind of like, whatever you learned from the person, when that person is no longer a part of your life, take that and see how it fits in whatever image you have of the relationship, because ultimately, that is you actually stepping out of whatever was happening, and that is you kind of like getting over the bias. I'd assume, I presume, I have faith that that's the right thing to kind of like, the right way to approach things. All right. Later.